There is a statement that came out of the White House press briefing room in the last several days that the mainstream coverage treated as reassurance, a routine denial, something to note and move on from. It was not reassurance. It was one of the most alarming admissions an American administration has made about the vulnerability of its own military assets in decades, and the downstream consequences of what that statement confirmed, not alleged confirmed, are going to be felt by every American sailor in the Persian Gulf, by every taxpayer who funded the ships they are on, and by every family wondering why gas is $6 a gallon and climbing. Here is what the White House confirmed. Russia is feeding Iran the real-time GPS coordinates of all 3 American aircraft carriers deployed in the Persian Gulf. The USS Gerald Ford, the USS Abraham Lincoln, the USS George H.W. Bush. Every minute those ships move, the Kremlin updates Iran's targeting picture. Iran knows the exact position of the escort destroyers. It knows the patrol patterns of the F-35s before they launch. It knows when the carrier decks are most exposed. And the administration's response, the official response of the government of the United States, was this. It changes nothing. The ships stay on course. Let that land for a second, not because of what Russia is doing, because of what the White House just admitted out loud. 15,000 American sailors are on ships whose positions are being continuously updated to an adversary that has already demonstrated the willingness and capability to strike American military assets. And the official position is that this changes nothing. That is not reassurance. That is the most revealing statement about the gap between American military posture and American strategic reality that this administration has produced. And almost nobody in the mainstream coverage is connecting what it actually means. So today I want to walk you through exactly what is happening, what Russia is doing and why, what the White House confirmation actually reveals about the carrier deployment, and what this costs you on your kitchen table when you understand that the most expensive military operation America has run since Iraq is being conducted under conditions the administration itself has confirmed are compromised. There are 3 things happening here. Stay with me. I will walk through each one. The first is what Russia is doing and why, because this is not improvisation, this is a strategy, and it is a strategy with deep historical roots that Putin has been constructing for years. Go back to Afghanistan, 1979. The Soviet Union invades. America does not send soldiers. America sends the CIA. America sends Stinger missiles. America sends intelligence, training, financing, and targeting support to the Mujahideen. And for 10 years, American proxy support bleeds the Soviet military, drains the Soviet economy, exhausts Soviet political will, and ultimately contributes to the collapse of the Soviet system itself. America fought the Soviet Union for a decade without losing a single American soldier in direct combat. The Afghans absorbed the risk. America provided the capability. Putin has said publicly, repeatedly, that he has not forgotten this, that he considers the American proxy war in Afghanistan one of the defining acts of strategic aggression against Russia in the 20th century. And he has said, in language that Western commentators have consistently underestimated, that Russia would find its moment to return the favor. This is the moment. And the instrument is Iran. Iran gave Russia something Russia desperately needed during the Ukraine war. Shahed drones, thousands of them. Cheap, effective, difficult to intercept, capable of saturating air defense systems through sheer volume. Those drones flew over Ukrainian cities, they struck Ukrainian power infrastructure, they killed Ukrainian civilians, they complicated American military support to Kiev in ways that conventional Russian weapons could not. Iran provided that capability when Russia needed it most, at a moment when Western sanctions had constrained Russia's own production capacity. Think about what this means strategically. Iran spent political capital, risked secondary sanctions, and provided real military capability to Russia during Russia's most vulnerable moment. And now that Iran needs something, Russia is paying it back. Not with soldiers, not with weapons that would trigger American escalation, with something more precise, more deniable, and more strategically damaging than any weapon. With information, with the exact location of America's most expensive and most symbolically important military assets, updated continuously in real time. Every missile Iran fires with Russian targeting data is a missile America cannot send to Ukraine. Every interceptor America burns defending the carrier groups is an interceptor that cannot go to Kyiv. Every $1 billion America spends in the Persian Gulf is $1 billion not available for the Pacific. Russia is waging war against American strategic resources without firing a single shot, using Iran as the instrument, at essentially zero cost and zero direct risk to itself. Think about the reframe. What Russia says it is doing, nothing. Russia is not formally in this conflict. Russia has not declared support for Iran. Russia is providing what it calls routine satellite observation of international waters, which is technically legal. What Russia is actually doing: degrading American deterrence in real time, bleeding American military resources, and testing whether the United States can manage simultaneous pressure in the Gulf, in Ukraine, and in the Pacific without breaking. That is Putin's revenge, and it cost him a satellite uplink. The second thing is what the White House confirmation actually reveals, because this is the part that the mainstream coverage is treating as a press briefing footnote, and it is anything but. When the administration confirmed that Russia was providing carrier coordinates to Iran and said it changes nothing, it was forced into a choice between two explanations. Either the carriers are safe, despite Iran having their real-time positions, because American air defenses are capable of defeating any Iranian strike, even with full targeting data. Or the carriers are not repositioning, because the political cost of repositioning, the optics of appearing to retreat, is worse than the military risk of staying. I want to be honest about which of those explanations is more consistent with the evidence. American carrier air defenses are genuinely formidable. The Aegis combat system is the most capable naval air defense platform ever built. Carrier strike group layered defenses, combining destroyers, submarines, aircraft, and electronic warfare, represent the most sophisticated defensive architecture in military history. I am not dismissing that capability, but here is what I cannot get past. Iran has already demonstrated in this conflict that it can strike American bases. NBC News reported, and multiple agencies confirmed, that Iranian attacks hit more than 100 positions across 11 American bases, with damage exceeding $5 billion, significantly more than the Pentagon publicly acknowledged. Iran has demonstrated it can penetrate American defenses when it chooses to commit resources to a strike. The question is not whether American defenses are capable. The question is whether they are capable enough to defeat a coordinated strike on a carrier when Iran has real-time position data and Russia has provided targeting optimization. And the White House said it changes nothing and kept the ships there. There is a historical parallel here that I think is exact, not approximate, exact. Think about Pearl Harbor, not the attack itself, the weeks before it. American signals intelligence had strong indicators that Japan was planning a major offensive operation in the Pacific. The indicators were real. The warnings were circulated. And the response at the highest levels was a combination of genuine uncertainty about the specific target and institutional reluctance to take actions, repositioning the fleet, increasing alert levels publicly that would signal American awareness of Japanese intentions and potentially disrupt diplomatic negotiations that were still ongoing. The fleet stayed at Pearl Harbor, not because American commanders were incompetent, because the political and diplomatic cost of repositioning was calculated to exceed the military risk of staying, and that calculation was catastrophically wrong. I am not saying Iran is about to strike an American carrier. I am not predicting that. What I am saying is that the structural logic, the tension between military risk and political optics, between what the intelligence picture is showing and what the official position is saying, that structural logic is identical. And history tells us what happens when that tension is resolved in favor of political optics over military reality. The third thing is what this cost you. And I want to be very specific because the kitchen table connection here is direct and immediate. The carrier deployment is the most expensive sustained naval operation America has run in 20 years. The reported cost of American munitions alone in the first 2 days of this conflict exceeded $5 billion, over 1,000 Tomahawk missiles, more than 10,000 Patriot interceptors, and the annual production rate of Tomahawks in peacetime is approximately 300 per year. The math on restocking that arsenal, even with accelerated wartime production, runs to years, not months. Now add the carrier operating costs, 3 carrier strike groups, the fuel, the maintenance, the personnel, the air wing operations, the escort vessel consumption, the submarine support. Each carrier strike group costs approximately $6 million per day to operate at full deployment intensity. 3 groups is $18 million a day. The deployment has been running for weeks, and those carriers are now confirmed to be operating with their real-time positions known to the adversary, which means they cannot do the one thing that makes their presence strategically rational, which is to project the credible threat of decisive and unexpected force. A carrier whose position is updated every minute to the enemy is not a deterrent, it is a target. Here is what this lands as on your kitchen table. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is at its lowest level since 1983. The Energy Secretary confirmed this in the Roosevelt Room emergency meeting with Chevron and ExxonMobil. Gas in California crossed $6 a gallon. Some states reported $8. Natural gas futures hit records not seen in years. The Federal Reserve cannot cut rates in an inflationary environment driven by energy disruption, which means your mortgage stays where it is, your car loan stays where it is, and the compression on your household budget from elevated borrowing costs continues indefinitely. All of this is the downstream consequence of a military deployment that the White House has now confirmed is operating under compromised conditions. The carriers are there. Russia knows where they are, Iran knows where they are, and the official position is that it changes nothing. I want to be honest about what I do not know. I do not know whether Iran will use the targeting data to attempt a carrier strike. The escalation threshold for striking an American carrier is extraordinarily high. Iran's leadership understands that a successful strike on a carrier would trigger an American response of a scale and intensity that would end the Islamic Republic as a functioning state. That deterrence is real, and I am not dismissing it. I am going to steelman the administration's position because it deserves a full hearing. The carriers being there, even with their positions known, serves a deterrence function that goes beyond their specific military capability. Their presence signals American commitment. Their presence reassures Gulf allies. Their presence maintains the credibility of American extended deterrence in a region where that credibility is the foundation of every security relationship America has. Repositioning the carriers in response to Russian satellite tracking would signal that American military assets can be moved by Russian information operations, which would itself be a form of strategic defeat. That argument is coherent. It is not irrational. There are serious strategic thinkers who would make it, but here is what I cannot resolve. If the carriers are there for deterrence and signaling rather than warfighting, and if their positions are known in real time to the adversary, then the deterrence they provide costs American taxpayers $6 million per strike group per day, burns through missile stockpiles that take years to replace, and keeps 15,000 American sailors in a confirmed targeting zone for a signal to an adversary that has already demonstrated willingness to strike American assets. That is the calculation that no American official is making publicly, and that gap between what the deployment is costing and what it is actually achieving is the story underneath the story. Trump said the carriers would end this war quickly. He said American military power was so overwhelming that Iran would have no choice. Instead, 3 weeks into the deployment, Russia is feeding Iran targeting data for all 3 carriers. The White House confirmed it and said it changes nothing. Iran is collecting toll fees in yuan while mining the strait further, and the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is at a 43-year low. The most expensive naval deployment in a generation is being tracked in real time by a country that has already bombed American bases more severely than the Pentagon admitted. And the official position is that this changes nothing. If you are a Russian strategic planner right now, watching America burn through missile stockpiles, bleed financial resources, keep carriers in a known targeting zone, and confirm publicly that Russian satellite intelligence is penetrating American operational security, what do you do next? Tell me in the comments. Because the answer to that question tells you more about the next phase of this conflict than anything the Pentagon has said publicly. History does not announce itself. The Soviets did not announce their proxy war strategy in Afghanistan in 1979. They just found an instrument, provided the capability, and watched America bleed. Putin is doing the same thing in reverse. The instrument is Iran. The capability is satellite targeting data. And America is bleeding. Not in soldiers, in resources, in credibility, in the strategic reserve capacity it needs for the conflicts it has not yet fought. Russia's revenge is not a missile, it is a satellite uplink, and that, more than anything else in this conflict, tells you who is actually winning the strategic game. Okay.